Jose ve Kitty Menendez, Beverly Hills'taki evlerinde vahşice öldürüldüler. Tetiği çekenler yabancı değildi. Katiller kendi oğullarıydı. Mahkeme sonunda onları ömür boyu hapse mahkum edecekti ama kamuoyunun bir kısmına göre gerçek suçlular anne ve babaydı. Peki işler nasıl bu noktaya geldi? Miras kavgası nedeniyle cinayetle suçlanan bu iki genç gerçekte ne yaşadı? Bu davaya geçmeden önce ben Lady Crowell. Suç hikayelerini anlatıyorum. Eğer bu tarz içerikler ilgini çekiyorsa beğenip abone olmayı, fikirlerini de yorumlar kısmında paylaşmayı unutma. 20 Ağustos 1989 gecesi. Beverly Hills'taki malikanede her şey sıradan görünüyordu. Jose ve Kitty Menendez televizyon izliyordu. Ancak bu sıradanlığı Lyle ve Eric'in birkaç gün önce aldıkları 12 kalibrelik iki tüfek bozuyordu. İki kardeşin bu gece için özel bir planı vardı. Ellerindeki tüfeklerle salonun kapısından girdiler. Girdikleri gibi Lyle ateş açtı ve birkaç kez tetiğe bastı. Hemen ardından Eric de ona katıldı. İlk seri atışlardan sonra kısa bir duraklama yaşandı. Ardından tekrar ateş edildi. Duraklamanın nedeni yaralı halde olan Kitty Menendez'in öldüğünden emin olunmak istenmesiydi. Olaydan sonra kardeşler evden ayrıldı. Silahları parçalara ayırıp attılar. Yaklaşık yarım saat sonra geri dönüp polisi aradılar. Telefonu açan Lyle Menendez'di. Panik içinde ağlayarak "Birileri annemi ve babamı vurdu," dedi. Konuşmasında yaşadığı şok ve çaresizlik hissi açıkça duyuluyordu.
Beverly Hills emergency.
Yes, police.
What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem?
Someone killed my parents.
Pardon me?
Someone killed my
Polisler ihbarın ardından kısa süre içinde eve ulaştı. Evdeki deliller toplandı, olay yeri dikkatle incelendi. Silahların bulunup bulunmadığı, tüfeklerden çıkan kovanlar ve atış sayısı gibi birçok bulgu kayda geçirildi. Dikkat çeken en önemli detaysa kapıların zorlanmamış olmasıydı. Lyle ve Eric ifadeleri alınmak üzere karakola götürüldü. Kardeşler şok içindeymiş gibi davrandılar. Ağlayarak neler olduğunu anlatmaya çalıştılar. Polis ilk görüşmelerde onları şüpheli olarak değerlendirmedi. Ancak kısa süre içinde iki kardeşin davranışlarındaki değişim şüphe uyandırmaya başladı. Cinayetten sonraki günler kardeşler lüks restoranlarda yemek yiyip eğleniyor, yeni arabalar alarak şehir turu yapıyorlardı. Tenis dersleri, özel aktiviteler, sanki her şey normalmiş gibi devam ediyordu. Bu davranışlar kısa sürede çevredekilerin dikkatini çekti. Onların gözünde artık iki kardeş yalnızca yas tutmayan çocuklar değil, mirasın tadını çıkaran şüphelilerdi. Nitekim bu lüks içinde geçen günler uzun sürmeyecekti. Cinayetten yaklaşık 2 ay sonra Eric psikoloğa gitmeye başladı. Küçüklük travmaları ve cinayetin üzerinde bıraktığı sorumluluk onu içten içe yiyip bitiriyordu. Seanslar ilerledikçe işler daha da derinleşti. Ve bir gün Eric "Biz ailemizi öldürdük," diyerek psikoloğuna açıldı. Terapist danışman gizliliği olsa da bu itiraf ikisi arasında kalmadı. Eric'in terapisti Jerome Oziel bu itirafı Judalon Smith'e, sevgilisine anlattı. Bir süre sonra Oziel ve Smith'in arası bozuldu. Bu kırılmayla birlikte Smith, Eric'in terapideki cinayet itirafını polise iletti. Bu bilgiyle beraber şüpheler resmi bir soruşturmaya dönüştü. 1990 yılının Mart ayında Eric, kısa süre sonra da Lyle gözaltına alındı ve böylece Beverly Hills'taki o kanlı gecenin hesabı mahkeme salonunda soruşturulmaya başlandı. Ancak mahkeme başladığında kimse bu davanın altında yatan nedenlerin bu kadar ağır ve akıl dışı olabileceğini kestirememişti.
Did you love your mom and dad?
Yes.
And on August 20th, 1989, did you and your brother kill your mother and father?
Yes.
Did you kill them for money? Is that right?
No.
Did you kill them because you wanted to pay them back for the way they had treated you?
Excuse me, I reject that as being meeting.
Overruled. No.
Why did you kill your parents?
Because we were afraid.
Savcılığa göre "korkuyorduk" söylemi suçlu olarak yakalanmış iki mirasçının son çaresiydi. Savunmaya göre ise bu cümle yıllarca süren bir korkunun, çaresizliğin eseriydi. O ana kadar dava bir para meselesi gibi görünüyordu, ancak bu ifadeyle birlikte yaşanılanlar anlatılacak, her şeyin yönü değişecekti. Savunmaya göre istismar çocukluk yıllarında başlamıştı. Lyle henüz 6 yaşındayken babasının getirdiği pornografik içerikleri izlemek zorunda bırakılmıştı.
There are pornographic films that were made available to you and your brother.
Yes.
And where did these films come from?
My dad brought them home with other videos.
And would you and your brother sneak and watch them, or how would you see them?
No, my dad would. We would just watch them together.
What types of things would be portrayed in these films?
It was mostly violence, sexual violence. I remember a whole bunch of the films. There would be films with gang rapes. There was one film centered around a woman that was riding her bike and was abducted and brought to a forest and gang raped. And there was another different film where there was females, 3 females attacking another female, and the same in the men's locker room with 3 guys and another guy, violent sexual acts.
Bu istismar videolarla sınırlı kalmamıştı. Babaları Jose Menendez çocuklarının çıplak fotoğraflarını çekiyordu.
You ever take photographs of you and your brother?
Yes.
And what would the circumstances be in which you would take photographs?
He would take photographs of us, our private parts.
And would he have you come in and pose for these photographs, or how would that happen?
I would just, if we were in the showers or bathtub or changing, he would just use the same camera that my mother used, and then he would come in and take just a photograph or 2, and he wouldn't say anything, and then he would leave.
Do you ever show you those photos?
No.
Mr. Menendez, I'm showing you a Kodak Color Prints envelope with the number 219 on it. Would you take a look at that? Do you recognize the handwriting on the front?
That's my mother's.
And what does it say?
Eric's birthday, November 1976.
And in November 1976, how old would you have been?
8.
Your Honor, I now have the enlargements which go in order off of the proof sheet off the negative. Mr. Menendez, do you recognize this photograph?
Yes.
And who are the people in that photograph?
Mom and Dad, myself, the Baralt family, children, and Aunt Terry and Uncle Carlos.
Could you just identify that for the record so that we don't have...
222, Your Honor.
All right.
$224.
That's Eric.
$225.
What was the answer?
I don't know.
It's nothing, Your Honor. Nobody can recognize. It's just the next photo on the negative. $226.
That's Eric and myself and some other boys.
You have
And-
to speak up.
Some other boys and Eric and myself. Sorry.
And do you recognize some mark on your brother?
The birthmark? The birthmark on his right wrist. It's a large brown.
227.
That's my father and Eric at a birthday party.
.228.
That looks like the same party with Eric and myself. Donut.
.232.
That's Eric.
How do you recognize him?
A birthmark on his right hand.
And .233. Now, when you, the two photographs here, with Mark, one which you've identified as
Lyle, kendisinin ve kardeşinin çıplakken çekilmiş fotoğraflarının varlığını bildiğini belirtmişti. Fakat ilk kez mahkeme salonunda herkesin önünde o görüntülerle yüzleşmişti.
He would take photographs of your genital area, the lower half of your body, or you bending over, or just different parts of your positions is what I never really knew.
because you never saw them afterward, or?
Which answer?
He would be focused on those areas, but I didn't see I've never seen these pictures.
Is today the first time you've seen these pictures?
Jose Menendez, oğullarına düzenli olarak erkekler arası bağ üzerine hikayeler anlatıyordu. Erkeklerin savaşa ya da uzun bir yolculuğa çıkmadan önce aralarındaki bağı güçlendirmek için fiziksel yakınlık kurduklarını söylüyordu. Ayrıca babayla ilk oğul arasında özel bir bağ olduğundan söz etmişti. Bu bağ yalnızca baba ve oğul arasında kalmalıydı.
Did your dad used to have talks with you about sex between men?
Yes.
And what types of situations would he talk to you about?
He would talk about the bonding between men, going into battle or in competitions, mostly with regards to battle and history, and that sexual interaction and touching and hugging, but also sex was throughout history was something that men that had gone into battle had done together. Had me read passages about it.
What do you mean, had you read passages about it? What would he give you to read?
Excuse me, Your Honor, could we have a time period, please?
Yes.
What time are we talking about in your life?
Talking about when I was 6.
What would he have you read?
He had history books with passages outlined, various battles and strategy, but in terms of on this subject, there would be particular passages about Greeks, soldiers having had sex with each other before they went into battle as a way of bonding with each other so they have a stronger connection. And he would talk about the same thing with regards to sports and he and I.
And did he talk about fathers and their firstborn sons in this regard?
Not in this. Not that that's what. I'm not understanding the question.
Did he talk about, you said he talked about soldiers and having sex between them as a bonding mechanism.
Yes.
Did he talk about teachers and students?
No.
Did he?
Oh, yes, he did actually. Not teachers. He talked to me about. I don't know. They were like lecturers or traveling lecturers, professors, and they would have arrangements with very close special students, young boys, and they would have sex, and they would touch each other.
And did he talk about it with regard to fathers and sons?
He talked about it with regard to our relationship as being very special, and our family history with the firstborn and the father.
And what was special about the relationship of the firstborn and the father?
That it was special, and that that was really all that mattered, was the firstborn, and that the sons should do what the fathers say, and then they grow up and they become like the father, and the father teaches them and molds them, and someday me and my son do the same.
And between the ages of 6 and 8, did your father have sexual contact with you?
Yes.
And how did it start?
Just started with, after sports practices, he would massage me, and we would have these talks, and he would show me, and he would fondle me, and he would ask me to do the same with him, and I would touch him, and we would undress.
Where would
and
this
it
take
was
place?
in my bedroom.
And how often would this happen?
Like 2 or 3 times a week.
Did it begin to change?
I'm not sure exactly at what time, but almost close to when I was 7.
And how did it change?
Just became more involved.
What do you mean more involved?
We would be in the bathroom, and he would put me on my knees, and he would guide me, all my movements, and I would have oral sex with him.
Did you want to do this? At some point, did he do some other things to you?
Yes.
What else did he do to you?
He used objects,
What kind of objects?
a toothbrush, and some sort of shaving utensil brush.
And what would he do with the toothbrush?
Well, in the bedroom, we'd have what we called object sessions, and just slide my pants down or take my pants off. Sometimes it'd be for a short period of time, sometimes longer. Just lay me on the bed, and he'd have a tube of Vaseline, and he just played with me.
And was there some point in time when he decided to use something besides the toothbrush?
Yes.
And did he try to anally penetrate you with something else?
He did.
And what was it?
He raped me.
Did you cry?
Yes.
Did you bleed?
Yes,
Were you scared?
very.
Did you ask him not to?
Yes.
How did you ask him not to?
I just told him, I don't. I just told him that I didn't want to do this, and that it hurt me. And he said that he didn't mean to hurt me, and he loved me.
Was that important to you, that he loved you?
Yes, very. But I still didn't want to do it.
Bir çocuk için en güvenli yer ailesi ve evidir. Ancak Lyle Menendez için ev güvenli bir alan olmaktan çok uzaktı. Babası tarafından yıllar boyunca sistematik olarak cinsel istismara maruz bırakılmıştı. İşin en acı taraflarından biri ise Lyle babasının yaptıklarına rağmen onun tarafından sevilmek isteyen bir çocuktu. Peki bu olanlardan annesinin haberi olmuş muydu?
Did you tell your mom?
Yes.
What did you say to your mom?
I told her to tell Dad to leave me alone. And he keeps touching me.
What did your mom say?
She told me to stop it. And that I was exaggerating. And that my dad has to punish me when I do things wrong. And she told me that he loved me.
Did you ever tell anybody else when you were a child? You heard Diane Vandermolen testify. Do you
Yes.
remember telling her?
No.
Did you complain to your cousin Alan?
No, not about that.
Just about punishment. As a child, did you ever tell anybody else what had happened with your dad?
Yes. As a child, no.
Why not?
I was afraid, and my dad didn't want me to.
What did he tell you about telling people?
He just said that it was our secret. That bad things would happen to me if I told anybody. And I told him I never would.
Annesi Lyle'a abartmaması gerektiğini söylemişti. Babasının onu yalnızca gerektiğinde cezalandırdığını, aslında onu sevdiğini dile getirmişti. Bu sözler yaşananları inkar etmekle kalmıyor, aynı zamanda Lyle'ın gerçekliğini de sarsıyordu. Lyle 8 yaşına gelene kadar bu istismar sürdü.
It stopped for you with your dad when you were 8. When you were about 13, did you think that it might be happening to someone else?
Yes.
And who did you think it was happening to?
Eric.
And did you do something about it?
Yes.
What did you do?
I talked to my dad.
What did you say to your dad?
I told him that I knew what was going on with him and Eric, and I heard the noises, and that I wanted him to leave Eric alone.
And what did he say to you?
He told me that Eric was that Eric made things up sometimes, but that it would stop, and that we should keep it just between us, or he'd kill me.
Did you ever tell anybody what you thought was going on?
I told him I would never tell anybody. I just wanted to stop.
Artık istismar yalnızca Lyle'la sınırlı değildi. Savunmaya göre Eric de yıllar boyunca babasının hedefindeydi. Lyle kardeşini korumaya çalıştığını, babasını durdurmak için araya girdiğini anlattı. Ancak hiçbir çabası sonuç vermemişti. Jose Menendez çocuklarını susturmayı başarmıştı. Korku, utanç ve tehdit, yıllarca süren bu sessizlik iki kardeşi tamamen izole etmişti. O güne kadar kimseye hiçbir şey anlatmamışlardı. İddialara göre anneleri bu durumdan haberdardı. Fakat müdahale etmemişti. Hatta bazı anlatımlarda eşini savunduğu ve olanları normalleştirdiği de öne sürüldü. Ayrıca savunmaya göre o da çocuklarını korumak yerine bu karanlık düzenin bir parçası haline gelmişti.
She didn't take very good care of herself. But it seemed to be important to her.
Would she ask you how she looked?
Yes.
And sometimes when she asked you how she looked, would she be inappropriately attired?
She would be topless. Usually just topless or like an open robe. And sometimes, with her clothes on.
And what ages are you talking about where she would expose herself to you this way?
Objection, the question is leading and mischaracterizing the testimony.
Overall. I was about 11.
She help you with your baths?
Yes.
How would she help you with your baths?
She would come in after I'd been in there a while. She would help wash my hair and wash me with a sponge.
How old are you talking about?
Same, 11 to like 11 to 13.
And when you say she would wash you with the sponge, would she just wash your back or?
No, she would wash me everywhere.
She would wash your genitals?
Yes.
You slept in bed with your mom a lot, didn't you, even when you were little?
Yes.
And did you continue to sleep in her bed around this time when you're 11 and 12?
Sometimes.
And sometimes, did you touch your mom?
Yes.
Would your dad be in bed?
Sometimes.
And where would you touch her?
Everywhere.
Did she touch your back?
She kissed me, but she didn't touch me.
And how long did these things go on for?
Until I was 13, a little bit farther than that.
And when this was going on with your mom, was she nicer to you than she used to be?
No. She was worse.
And did it stop at some point?
It stopped a few months after I was 13.
Who stopped it?
I did.
How did she react to that?
She was furious and, she couldn't be too much worse, but she harassed me and we just sort of had arguments about and problems about that for a long time, a couple of years.
Was your
Really
rela-
for my whole life, because it came out in other ways too.
your relationship with your mother was never good before that, is that correct?
No.
Was it worse after that?
Oh yeah, she was just, she was pretty much zeroed in on me after that. Very, I don't know, she felt rejected. I don't know what she felt exactly, but it was a constant attacking.
Were you angry? Were you angry with her also?
Was I angry? I was very angry. I thought that it was unfair.
Why was it unfair?
Because we were doing this and she was enjoying it, and was hoping that things were going to get better for our whole relationship, and things might get better, and she got worse.
Did you think she was going to love you if you did these things?
I took it to be love, and that's what I wanted.
Darbe demiştim. Bu iki çocuk tacizlerin arasında hem aşağılanıyor hem de fiziksel şiddete de maruz kalıyordu.
I had sprained my ankle, and so I had an ankle problem still, and I was playing with it. And so I just wasn't running as fast, and my dad was ridiculing me and pushing me and saying, you know, what a baby. Look, Brad, he can't run fast. Look at him. Look at him, oh, poor baby. Can't play tennis. Can't run. His ankle hurts. He was doing that over and over and over. And then finally I was so embarrassed, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and I lost control, and I told my dad, why don't you just shut up? And
Had you ever said anything like that to your dad before?
no, never. And my coach was just like this, and I looked at him, my dad. You couldn't believe the transformation of my dad. He just turned red, and he didn't know what to do with himself. He grabbed the ball, and he threw it at me, and the ball hit me.
Could you have stepped out of the way?
Yes,
Why didn't you?
I wanted the ball to hit me.
Why?
Because I had screwed up, and I was hoping. My dad he lost control there, and I wanted to dissipate it. Maybe, you know, if he was going to throw a ball at me, I was going to make sure I got hit by the ball. So I got hit by the ball, and he told me to come over, and I kind of walked up to him, and he led me over to the back of the car.
How did he lead you over to the back of the car?
He just grabbed me by the arm and led me. Didn't drag me or anything, because my coach was right there. And put me in the back of the car. As soon as I got in the back of the car, he just punched me straight in the face. And I went back against the window, and he grabbed my neck. He said, don't ever embarrass me like that again, or I'll kill you.
What did you do?
Well, I didn't do anything. I just sat there. I had blood all over my shirt. He tightened his grip on my neck, and he says, is that perfectly clear? And I said, yes.
Bu olaydan sonra Jose Menendez koçun yanına gitti, ondan özür diledi. Arabaya döndü. Arabada şoför vardı, ancak o bu olaya müdahil olmadı. Yol boyunca hıçkırarak ağlayan Lyle, babasının ona aldırış etmeden arabadan inip eve geçtiğini söyledi. Lyle kendisini ancak bir süre sonra toplayıp şok halinden çıktıktan sonra eve geçebildi. Annesi onu gördüğünde şaşırmadı. Neler olduğunu sormadı veya kocasıyla kavga etmedi. Aksine ilk yardım çantasıyla Lyle'ı bekliyordu. Lyle'ın dediğine göre o hastaneye gideceklerini düşünmüştü. Ancak annesi hastaneye gerek yok, iyileşirsin demişti. O da kanlar içinde annesinin ona bakmasını bekledi. Lyle bu olay olduğunda 17 yaşındaydı.
Didn't you hit your dad back?
I just didn't hit my dad back.
Were you mad at him?
No, I was in shock, really, because I hadn't been punched like that. I hadn't been punched like that ever, actually. And I would never hit my dad back. That would be crazy.
Why?
My dad was just a very I just don't think he would have. I don't know what he would have done to me. I would not have just hit my dad or really got angry with my dad either. He didn't tolerate that.
Mahkeme bir sonraki aşamaya geçti. Artık söz Eric Menendez'de olacaktı. Duygusuz ve yalancı olarak anılan genç adamda. Bu hikayenin devamını 2. bölümde anlatacağım. Kaçırmamak için abone olmayı ve bildirimleri açmayı unutmayın. Buraya kadar dinlediğiniz için teşekkür ederim. Sağlıcakla kalın.